So that was last night, and the question now is, does the president want to seem anxious for a tax cut, and really does he even need one to win next year? I want to ask Spencer Brown with the Young Americans Foundation, Fox Business Network's Jackie DeAngelis, and Democratic strategist Spencer Critchley. Jackie, let me start with you because I think there's a distinction between want and need. I don't know that we necessarily need one, but maybe it would go a long way toward even making a strong economy stronger.
Hi there, Charles. That's right. And I think the president's taking a wait-and-see approach here to see specifically what happens with these trade negotiations with China. You saw the market had a very strong reaction today to retaliation, and we're not exactly sure where this is going to end. So potentially holding on to a tax cut, which, by the way, would need congressional approval, is something that could stimulate the economy down the line if things don't necessarily go his way. I just want to make one point, though. It's this back and forth in terms the administration can have its own strategy and they can have these conversations, but it's making these conversations public that makes the market get excited about it or disappointed when it doesn't happen, and that's part of the problem.
No doubt about that. Spencer Critchley, Jackie talked about congressional approval. Would Democrats go against the middle class getting a payroll tax cut, the same one similar to what Obama did twice?
Tax cuts can be beneficial depending on how they're structured and how they're timed, but the question is there going to be any structure or any thought about timing in this case? The biggest concern here, I think, is not whether to be for or against a particular tax cut. The problem, I think, as Jackie just indicated, is the volatility. There's an actual market price. There's an economic price to uncertainty. We didn't just see the Dow plunge today. We saw the volatility index go way up. I was talking about a potential tax cut, though.
If President Trump said, hey, we're going to do a payroll tax cut, maybe go from 6.2 to 4.2%, would Democrats be on board for that?
We'd have to see. I mean, we'd like to see something that actually benefits the middle class, unlike Tax Cut 1.0, which was a gift to corporations and people who earn dividends from holding stocks and did almost nothing for people who earn a paycheck. If it was a question of doing something that actually helped wage earners, we'd like that idea. Of course, we'd like to do it without exploding the deficit the way this president has.
Spencer Brown, on that note, we see blue-collar wages surging over the last year at a pace they haven't done in over a decade. And households have so much strength right now. We saw that on full display all week long and all of last week. So would this be unwanted stimulus, unneeded stimulus, or would it be just the right thing to do?
Well, I think, you mentioned the market moves whenever there's the suggestion that there may be tax cuts coming, and that's because tax cuts are good for the economy. Look, when American workers, when they have more money in their paycheck, they have more money to spend and reinvest in the economy, and nobody knows better how to invest that money in their local community or in themselves than the individual, as opposed to some bureaucrat here in Washington. So I think tax cuts are always a good thing because they help Americans make those choices and give them more freedom to do that.
The CBO came out yesterday, and it's an interesting thing, a split decision. They're saying no recession. They go from 2020 to 2023 will grow at 1.8%. In fact, better than they thought just a few months ago. But you just said the tax cuts are good. Many are wondering these days, are these deficits, Spencer, are these debts good?
Well, I think it's interesting for the Washington establishment to ever talk about deficits or the debt when, they haven't been real concerned about that in recent memory. And again, I think it's just up to the American people, when given the opportunity, will invest and better their communities and make that spending choice. But they can't do that if taxes go up or if they are snapped back to where they were before Tax Cuts 1.0.
Jackie, listen, I think thinking out of the box, rate cuts before we go into recession, these kind of payroll tax cuts to help the middle class. I don't see what's wrong with doing something like that, even if it goes against traditional grain.
Well, look, this is sort of an unprecedented situation that we're in right now, and I think Jerome Powell indicated that in his comments earlier today at Jackson Hole in terms of how the Fed is going to act. The Fed's never necessarily responded to a trade war situation by cutting interest rates, and that's what it's struggling with. It's looking, at the data. But having said that, and having said that it's unprecedented, it may mean that, the measures taken to remedy this situation are a little different. Look, I think the stock market would like to see a trade deal, a resolution, a sort of calm and peaceful approach to this whole situation to get back on track. Right. But if the volatility continues, there are other measures, obviously, that can be implemented to help things along.
All right. Thank you all very much. And by the way, we're going to have more of David Assman's interview with Larry Kudlow tomorrow on Cavuto Live. Remember, that's at 10 a.m. Eastern.